Sterling Community Theater, under the direction of Nate Leonard, presents Alice in Wonderland. Sterling Community Theater presents this, the first part of its dramatization of Lewis Carroll's classic, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. The original music had been specially written for the broadcast by Lee Stevens and Paul Starrett. Unfortunately, that score is lost. John Leslie's creativity has brought a new musical score to life.
Alice in Wonderland, a fairy story of the 19th century. A bit of a gossamer flimsy, a fantasy for children.
Alice, a fairy story peopled with human beings, animals that talk like men. Do they mirror men who act like animals? I do not know. I merely wrote a simple story about a little girl for a little girl. Half the world has, for 72 years, called it childish nonsense. The other half, significant social satire. To me, it has always been simply Alice's Adventures in Wonderland.
Alice in Wonderland.
Alice, don't fidget so.
I beg your pardon, sister, but it is so very dull today. Isn't it tea time yet?
Not quite. We'll go into tea when I finish the chapter I'm reading. Why don't you go and pick some daisies?
Oh, it's so dreadfully hot to pick daisies. Sister, look! Down in the grass, a white rabbit. Sister, he has a waistcoat on, and look, he's taking a watch out of it.
Oh, Alice, what nonsense. Oh dear, I shall be late.
Sister, did you hear that?
Hear what?
The rabbit, he looked at his watch and then he spoke.
Oh, Alice, your imagination. Alice, come back here. Where are you going?
I've got to see the white rabbit again, sister. Oh, dear, he's hopped into the hole under the hedge. But it is such a very large rabbit hole. Perhaps I could squeeze through. There! I can still see him. He's down at the end. Oh, I must hurry. I'm falling.
Falling down what seems to be a very deep well.
Either the well was very deep, or she fell very slowly, for she had plenty of time to look about her and notice that the sides of the well were filled with cupboards and bookshelves.
After such a fall as this, I shall think nothing of tumbling downstairs. Why, I wouldn't say anything about it, even if I fell off the top of the house.
Which is very likely true.
Down, down, down. Alice became very drowsy, and she had almost fallen asleep when...
Oh! Gracious! I've landed. I ought to be hurt, but I don't seem to be. Now, where is the white rabbit? Oh, there he goes!
Oh, my ears and whiskers, how late it's getting!
He's turned the corner of the passage. Oh, I mustn't lose him.
But when Alice turned the corner, the rabbit was no longer to be seen. She found herself in a long, low hall with doors all around it, all locked. In the middle was a little three-legged table of solid glass, nothing on it but a tiny golden key.
Alice tries the key in the various doors of the hall, but either the locks are too large or the key is too small. Now she sees a little door about 15 inches high. She tries the little golden key in the lock, and it fits. Alice is opening the door. Now she is kneeling to look through the passage. It leads to a lovely garden, but she can't even get her head through the doorway.
And even if my head would go through, it would be of very little use without my shoulders. Oh, how I wish I could shut up like a telescope. I think I could, if I only knew how to begin.
Alice is returning to the table now. She's looking for another key, or perhaps a book of rules for shutting people up like telescopes. She doesn't find either, but there is a little bottle there.
Which certainly wasn't here before.
Around the neck of the bottle is a paper label with the words, "Drink me," beautifully printed on it in large letters.
Drink me. No, I'll look first and see whether or not it's marked poison.
But the bottle was not marked poison, so Alice ventured to taste it, and finding it very nice,
It had, in fact, a sort of mixed flavor of cherry tart, custard, pineapple, roast turkey, toffee, and hot buttered toast.
she very soon finished it off.
What a curious feeling. I must be shutting up like a telescope.
She is shrinking. She is now only 10 inches high. She's about the size to go through the door into the lovely garden now. She's a little nervous, though, afraid she might shrink too far.
It might end, you know, in my going out altogether, like a candle. I wonder what I should be like then.
Fortunately, nothing more happened. But alas for poor Alice, she had left the little golden key on the table, and though she could see it quite plainly through the glass, she was now much too small to reach it. Soon, her eye fell on a little glass box that was lying under the table. She opened it and found in it a very small cake on which the words, "Eat me," were beautifully marked in currants.
Well, I'll eat it, and if it makes me grow larger, I can reach the key. And if it makes me grow smaller, I can creep under the door. So either way, I'll get through to the garden. And I don't care much which happens. Which way? Which way?
She's holding her hand on the top of her head to feel which way she is growing.
Curiouser and curiouser.
She is so surprised, she quite forgets to speak good English.
Now I'm opening out like the largest telescope there ever was.
Goodbye, feet!
Ouch!
Her head strikes against the roof of the hall. She is now more than 9 feet high. She takes up the little golden key and hurries off to the garden door.
Poor Alice, it was as much as she could do lying down on one side to look into the garden with one eye. But to get through the little door was more hopeless than ever. She sat down and began to cry.
You ought to be ashamed of yourself. Such a great big girl like you.
She might well say this.
To go on crying in this way. Stop this moment, I tell you.
But she went on just the same, shedding gallons of tears until there was a large puddle around her, about 4 inches deep and reaching halfway down the hall. After a time, she heard a little pattering of feet in the distance, and she hastily dried her eyes as the White Rabbit returned, this time splendidly dressed with a pair of white kid gloves in one hand and a large fan in the other. He came trotting along in a great hurry, muttering to himself as he came. "Oh, the Duchess, oh, won't you be savage if I've kept her waiting?
If you please.
Oh, my ears and whiskers.
Stop, you've dropped your gloves and your fan.
Oh, my ears and whiskers, oh." And the White Rabbit was gone. Alice took up the fan and gloves, and as the hall was very hot, she started to fan herself.
Gracious, I must be growing smaller. I am. Now I'm only 2 feet high. I shall go out altogether. It must be the fan. Oh, that was a narrow escape. If I hadn't dropped it, it could have been the end of me. But now I'm small enough to go through the door.
And Alice finds herself up to her chin in salt water, swimming around in the pool of tears she had wept when she was 9 feet high.
Oh, I wish I hadn't cried so much. I shall be punished for it now, I suppose, by being drowned in my own tears. That will be a queer thing, to be sure. However, everything is queer today. Oh, what a fearful racket! It must be a walrus or a hippopotamus. Oh, no, I've forgotten how small I've grown. It's only a mouse. But it is bigger than I am. Oh, mouse, do you know the way out of this pool? I'm very tired of swimming about here. Oh, mouse. Perhaps it doesn't understand English. I dare say it's a French mouse. Come over with William the Conqueror. Où est machette?
First sentence in Alice's French book. Translation, where is my cat? The mouse doesn't like the reference in English or in French.
Oh, I do beg your pardon. I quite forgot you don't like cats.
Oh, not like cats. Well, would you like cats if you were me?
Well, perhaps not. But I do wish you could meet our cat, Dinah. She's such a capital one for catching mice.
Oh.
Oh. Well, we don't talk about it anymore, if you'd rather not.
Oui, indeed. As if I will talk on such a subject. Our family always hated cats. Nasty, low, vulgar things. Don't let me ever hear the name again.
I won't indeed, I promise.
Well, very well indeed. Then let us go to the shore and I'll tell you my history. And you'll understand why it is that I hate cats.
It was high time to go, for the pool was getting quite crowded with all the birds and animals that had fallen into it. There were a duck and a dodo, a lory and an eaglet, and several other curious creatures. Alice led the way, and the whole party swam ashore.
They are indeed a queer-looking party as they assemble on the bank. The birds with draggled feathers, the animals with their fur clinging closely to them, and all dripping wet and cross and uncomfortable. The first question, of course, is how to get dry again, and an argument ensues, which the dodo, who seems to be a person of some authority, finally ends.
Quiet! All of you! If you really want to get dry, then the best way is a caucus race.
What is a caucus race?
Why, the only way to explain it is, to do it.
And as you might like to try the thing yourself some winter day, I will tell you how the dodo managed it. First, it marked out a race course in sort of a circle,
Though it is said the exact shape didn't matter.
and then everybody was placed along the course here and there. There was no 1, 2, 3 and away, but they began running when they liked and left off when they liked, so that it was not easy to know when the race was over. However, when they had been running half an hour or so, the dodo suddenly called out,
The race is over!
But who has won?
Just a minute, just a minute. Let me think. Everybody has won, and all must have prizes.
Prizes? But who is to give the prizes? Oh, prizes? Prizes?
Why, she, of course.
Me?
Yes, you.
Alice had no idea what to do, and in despair, she put her hand in her pocket and pulled out a box of candy
Lucky the salt water hadn't gotten into it.
and handed them around as prizes. There was exactly one apiece all around.
But she must have a prize herself, you know.
Of course! What else have you got in your pocket, little girl?
Oh, only a thimble.
Hand it over here.
There.
Thank you. We beg your acceptance of this, elegant thimble. And now, while we eat our prizes...
I can't eat mine. It's a thimble.
Oh, you're lucky.
Oh, mine's too big. Help, I'm choking.
Here, some of you. Pat is back.
Oh,
Pat is back.
oh, squeak, squeak. I thank you. Oh, squeak. Oh, I thank you. Oh, there. That's better.
Oh, I can't taste mine. It's too small.
I'm sorry. It's the best I could do. Oh, Mouse, you promised, you know.
Promise what?
To tell us your history and why you hate you know what.
Oh, mine is a long and sad tale. Oh, woe is me.
I can see it's a long tale, oh Mouse, but why is it sad?
Oh, you insult me by talking such nonsense.
Oh, I really meant nothing, but you're so easily offended, you know.
I'm very much afraid that you are a waste of time.
Oh, please come back and tell us your story.
What a pity he wouldn't stay.
I wish our Dinah were here. She'd soon as fetch it back.
And who is Dinah, if I might venture to ask the question?
Dinah's our cat, and she's such a capital one at catching mice. And oh, I wish you could see her after the birds. Why, she'd eat a little bird as soon as you look at it, and... Oh, I wish I hadn't mentioned Dinah. Nobody seems to like her down here, and I'm sure she's the best cat in the world. Oh, my poor Dinah. I wonder if I should ever see her anymore. There's no sort of use in crying about it. I shall never get out of here unless I set about growing to my full size again. But the great question is, how?
Suddenly, Alice noticed a large mushroom growing near her, about the same height as herself. And on top of it, a large blue caterpillar was sitting with his arms folded, quietly smoking a long hookah. The caterpillar took his languid time about noticing Alice.
And, who are you?
I hardly know, sir, just at present. At least, I knew who I was when I got up this morning.
What do you mean by that? Explain yourself.
I can't explain myself, I'm afraid, sir, because I'm not myself. You see?
I don't see.
Well, I'm afraid I can't put it any more clearly, for I can hardly understand it myself. And being so many different sizes in a day, it's all very confusing.
It isn't.
If you changed as much as I had today, you'd feel a little queer too.
Not a bit.
Well, perhaps your feelings are different, but it feels very queer to me.
You? Well, who are you?
I think you ought to tell me who you are first.
Why?
I'm afraid we're not getting anywhere at all.
Come back. Here, I've something important to say.
Well, what is it?
Keep your temper.
Is that all?
Yes. Good day to you, my dear.
But,
One side will make you grow taller, the other side will make you grow shorter.
one side of what? The other side of what?
Of the mushroom.
How can you tell which are the two sides of the mushroom when it's perfectly round? Oh, maybe if I stretch my arms around it as far as they'll go and break off a bit with each hand and there! Now, which is which? I guess I'll try the right hand piece first.
Oh, I'm going small!
free at last.
As she grew larger, she saw across the top of the mushroom a little house about 4 feet high.
I could never visit that lovely place if I grow to my full size, so I better stop here.
She is nibbling a little on the right-hand piece. Now a quick nibble on the left-hand piece. She is now established at 9 inches.
As she approaches the house, a fish dressed in a footman's livery came running out of the woods and rapped loudly on the door. It was opened by another footman in livery, who was really a frog. Alice crept behind a bush to listen as the fish footman presented a great letter, nearly as large as himself.
For the Duchess, an invitation from the Queen to play croquet.
From the Queen, an invitation for the Duchess to play croquet.
They both bowed, and the curls of their white wigs got entangled together. Alice laughed so much at this that she had to run back into the woods for fear of their hearing her. And when she peeped out, the fish footman was gone, and the frog footman was sitting on the ground near the door, staring stupidly up to the sky. Alice went up to the door and knocked.
There's no sense of use in knocking, and that for 2 reasons. First, because I'm on the same side of the door as you are. And second, because they're making so much a noise inside that no one could possibly hear you.
Please, then how am I to get in?
There might be some sense in your knocking if we had the door between us. For instance, if you were inside, you might knock, and I might let you out, you know?
But how am I to get in?
I shall sit here till tomorrow. Or the next day, maybe.
How am I to get in?
Are you to get in at all? That's the first question, you know.
It's really dreadful the way you creatures argue. It's enough to drive one crazy.
I shall sit here, on and off, for days and days.
But what do I have to do?
Anything you like.
Then I'll go in anyways.
The door leads into a large kitchen. It is full of smoke. The Duchess is sitting on a 3-legged stool nursing a baby. The cook is stirring a large cauldron of soup and throws pepper into it by the shakerful. A large cat is lying on the hearth, grinning from ear to ear. He doesn't sneeze, neither does the cook, but everyone else does. Achoo!
Please, would you tell me why your cat grins like that?
It's a Cheshire cat, and that's why. Pig?
Were you speaking to me?
No, I was speaking to this brat.
Oh.
Take that! And that! And that!
Oh, be careful! What are you throwing the pots and pans at the baby for?
Oh, that happens every afternoon at 4 o'clock.
Oh, be careful what you're throwing, cook. Don't. Oh! There goes his precious little nose.
Speak roughly to your little boy, achoo, and beat him when he sneezes. He only does it to annoy, achoo, because he knows it teases.
Wow! Wow! Wow!
Here, you may nurse it for a bit if you like. Catch!
Oh, be careful. I nearly dropped it.
Oh, I must go and get ready to play croquet with the Queen.
Take that, you toad! Oh, missed her again!
If I don't take this child away with me, they're sure to kill it in a day or two. It would really be committing murder to leave it behind. Oh, don't squeal, my dear. That is not at all the proper way of expressing yourself. If you're going to turn into a pig, my dear, I'll have nothing more to do with you. Mine now. What am I going to do with this creature when I get it home? Oh, I guess there'll be no taking you home. You'll be happier in the woods. Run on! If it had grown up, it would have made a dreadfully ugly child. But it makes a rather handsome pig, I think.
and she began thinking over other children she knew who might do very well as pigs, when she was a little startled to see the Cheshire Cat in the bough of a tree a few yards off.
Hello, Cheshire Puss. Would you tell me which way I ought to go from here?
That depends a good deal upon where you want to get to.
I don't really care where.
Oh, then it doesn't matter which way you go.
What sort of people live round here?
That direction lives a hatter. That direction lives a March hare. Visit either. Both are mad.
But I don't want to go among mad people.
Oh, you can't help that. We're all mad here. I'm mad. You're mad.
How do you know I'm mad?
You must be, or you wouldn't have come here. Do you play croquet with the Queen today?
I should like it very much, but I haven't been invited yet.
You'll see me there.
Well, he's disappeared into thin air. No, here he comes back.
By the by, what became of the baby? I nearly forgot to ask.
It turned into a pig.
I always thought it would.
I wonder if he's disappeared for good now. Well, who shall I go and visit? I've seen a hatter before, so I imagine the March hare would be most interesting. And since it's May, it wouldn't be raving mad. At least, not as mad as it was in March.
Did you say pig or fig?
I said pig?
All right.
This time, it vanished quite slowly, beginning with the end of the tail and ending with the grin, which remained some time after the rest of it had gone.
So ends the first half of the Sterling Community Theater's dramatization of Alice in Wonderland. And after a brief intermission, we will present the second half of this immortal classic, Alice's visit to the Mad Tea Party, the Queen's Croquet Game, the Mock Turtle's story, the Lobster Quadrille, and the exciting climax when all Wonderland attends the trial to determine who stole the tarts. Sterling Community Theater, under the direction of Nate Leonard, presents the second episode of Alice in Wonderland. This, the second part of its dramatization of Lewis Carroll's classic, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland.
It all started with Alice's curiosity about a white rabbit.
Who hopped by as she and her sister sat by the bank of a stream. Oh dear, I shall be late. Before she knew it, Alice was falling down what seemed to be a deep well, at the bottom of which, among other curious creatures, she met a mouse.
Oh, mine is a long and sad tale. Oh, woe is me.
And a caterpillar.
Keep your temper.
Outside a little house in the middle of a wood, she encountered a frog dressed in the livery of a footman.
I shall sit here, on and off, for days and days.
And inside the little house, a sneezing baby, a cook, and a very ugly duchess.
Speak roughly to your little boy and beat him when he sneezes. Achoo!
She had rescued the sneezing baby from the fury of the cook, only to have the baby turn into a pig. And a moment later, A Cheshire cat had faded into existence on a limb above her.
That direction lives a hatter. That direction lives a March hare. Visit either. Both are mad.
She had not gone much further before she came upon the house of the March Hare.
She is sure it is the right house because the chimneys are shaped like ears and the roof is thatched with fur.
There was a table set out under a tree in front of the house, and the March Hare and the Hatter were having tea at it.
A dormouse is sitting between them, fast asleep. The March Hare and the Hatter are using him as a cushion, resting their elbows on him. They aren't at all anxious to have Alice's company.
Hey, no room!
No room!
No room!
No room!
No room!
No
No room! No room!
There's plenty of room, and I'm going to sit down. There.
Have some wine.
I don't see any wine, March Hare.
There isn't any.
Then it wasn't very civil of you to offer it.
Well, it wasn't very civil of you to sit down without being invited.
Well, I didn't know it was your table, and it's laid out for a great many more than 3.
You know, your hair wants cutting.
Oh, that's very rude. You should learn not to make personal remarks, Hatter.
Why is a raven like a writing desk?
Oh, I'm glad you're going to ask riddles. That'd be fun. But I do believe I can guess that one.
Do you mean that you think you can find out the answer to it?
Exactly so.
Then you should say what you mean.
I do. At least, I mean what I say. That is the same thing, you know.
Not the same thing a bit. Why, you might just as well say that I see what I eat is the same thing as I eat what I see.
You might just as well say that I like what I get. It's the same thing as I get what I like.
You might as well just say that I breathe when I sleep. It's the same thing as I sleep when I breathe.
It is the same thing for you, Dormouse.
Oh, I'd better figure out the answer to that before they forget it. Why is a raven like a writing desk? Raven, writing, raven.
What day of the month is it?
4th?
This watch is 2 days wrong. I told you butter wouldn't suit the works.
It was the very best butter.
Yes, but some crumbs must have got in as well. You shouldn't have put it in with the bread knife.
But it was the best butter. Let me dip it in the tea. It might wash the crumbs out.
What a funny watch. It tells the day of the month, but doesn't tell what o'clock it is.
Why should it? Does your watch tell you what year it is?
Of course not. But that is because it stays the same year in such a long time together.
Which is just the case with mine.
I don't understand
The
you.
Dormouse is asleep again.
Oh, no. I heard everything you fellows said.
Have you guessed the riddle yet?
No, I give up. What is the answer?
I haven't the slightest idea.
Nor I.
I think you better do something better with your time than wasting it on asking riddles that don't have answers.
Ah, if you knew time as well as I do, you wouldn't talk about wasting it. It's him.
I don't know what you mean.
Of course you don't. I dare say you've never even spoken to time.
Perhaps not, but I know you have to beat time when you learn music.
Ah, that accounts for it. He won't stand beating. I know. He and I quarreled last March just before he, the March Hare, went mad, you know. It was at the great concert given by the Queen of Hearts, and I had to sing.
Twinkle, twinkle, little bat, how I wonder what you're at.
You know the song, perhaps?
I've heard something like it.
Oh, it goes on, you know, in this way.
Up above the world you fly, like a tea tray in the sky. Twinkle, twinkle, little bat.
Twinkle, 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 twinkle.
Be quiet, Dormouse.
Ouch! Stop pinching pushing me?
Well, I'd hardly finished the first verse when the queen bawled out, "He's murdering the time, off with his head."
How dreadfully savage!
And ever since that, he won't do a thing I ask. It's always 6 o'clock now.
Is that the reason so many tea things are put out here?
Yes, that's it. It's always tea time, and we've no time to wash the things between the whiles.
Then you move around, I suppose, from one seat to the next.
Exactly so, as the things get used up.
But what happens when you come back to the beginning again?
Oh, take some more tea.
I haven't had any yet, March Hare, so I can't take more.
You mean you can't take less, and it's very easy to take more than nothing.
Nobody asked your opinion.
Who's making personal remarks now?
Oh, you!
I want a clean cup. Let's move up one place.
But then you're the only one who gets a clean place, and I have to sit where March Hare sat, and he upset the milk jug into his plate.
We only move one seat over.
And if you don't like that,
You don't have to drink the tea you haven't had yet. This piece of rudeness was more than Alice could bear. She got up in great disgust and walked off. The dormouse fell asleep instantly, and neither of the others took the least notice of her going.
For they are now trying to shove the dormouse into the teapot.
As Alice wandered on through the wood, she came suddenly upon a tree with a little door leading right into it. She was not in the least surprised, for she had come to expect anything in Wonderland. So she quickly opened the door and entered, to find herself at last among the bright flower beds and the cool fountains of a beautiful garden.
The one she had first seen through the little door in the hall.
She had scarcely time to look about her when she heard the sounds of a procession approaching. It was the royal entourage of the King and Queen of Hearts, accompanied by their guests, the kings and queens of diamonds, spades, and clubs, with their soldiers and courtiers. When the procession came opposite to Alice, it stopped, and everybody looked at her as the Queen of Hearts spoke.
Who is this? How did she get in here? Speak, child. What is your name?
My name is Alice, so please, your majesty.
Alice?
Why? They're only a pack of cards after all. I needn't be afraid of them.
She has no business being Alice. Off with her head. Off with her...
Nonsense!
Oh, consider, my dear, she's only a child.
She has a head, King.
Oh, but my dear consort.
Mind your own.
Oh, yes, my dear.
On with the procession. For the present, child, you may keep your head.
That's dreadfully kind of you.
The procession continued to the fountains in the center of the garden, while Alice looked about her vainly for some way of escape, but the Queen kept constantly by her side.
Have you seen the mock turtle yet?
No, I don't even know what a mock turtle is.
It's the thing mock turtle soup is made from.
I never saw nor heard of one.
Come on, then. He shall tell you his story.
After a little walk, the Queen and Alice came upon a griffin lying fast asleep in the sun.
If you don't know what a griffin is, there's very little use in telling you, for you wouldn't believe it anyway. It's sort of half lion, half eagle, half... Never mind, I knew you wouldn't believe it. Up, lazy thing, and take this young lady to see the mock turtle, and to hear his story. I must go back and see after some executions I've ordered.
Ah, what fun.
What is the fun?
Why, it's all her fancy, that. They haven't executed nobody, you know. Come on.
They had not gone far before they saw the mock turtle in the distance, sitting sad and lonely on a little ledge of rock. and as they came nearer, Alice could hear him sighing as if his heart would break. She pitied him deeply.
Oh dear, oh me, oh my.
Oh, what is his sorrow?
It's all his fancy, that. He hasn't got no sorrow, you know. This here young lady, she wants for to know your history, she do.
I'll tell her. Sit down, both of you, and don't speak a word until I've finished.
I don't see how he can ever finish if he doesn't begin.
Once, I was a real turtle. When we were little, we went to school in the sea. The master was an old turtle. We used to call him Tortoise.
Why did you call him Tortoise if he was a turtle?
We called him Tortoise because he taught us. Really, you're very dull.
You ought to be ashamed of yourself for asking such a simple question. Drive on, old fellow. Don't be all day about it.
Yes, yes. We went to school in the sea, though you mayn't believe it.
I never said I didn't.
You did.
Hold your tongue, little girl.
Yes, we had the best of educations. In fact, we went to school every day.
I've been to today's school too. What did you learn about?
Reeling and writhing, of course, to begin with. And then the different branches of arithmetic. Ambition, distraction, uglification, and derision.
What else did you study?
Well, there was mystery, mystery ancient and modern, with seaography. Then drawling. The drawling master, he was an old conger eel that used to come once a week. He taught us drawling, stretching, and fainting in coils.
What was that like?
Well, I can't show it to you myself. I'm too stiff. And the griffin, well, he never learned it.
Hadn't time. I went to the classical master, though. He was an old crab, he was.
I never went to him. He taught laughing and grief, they used to say.
Zoe did, Zoe did.
How many hours in a day did you do a lesson for?
10 hours the first day, 9 the next, and so on.
What a curious plan.
That's the reason they're called lessons, because they lessen from day to day.
How did you manage on the 12th?
It was a holiday.
That's enough about lessons. Tell us something about the games now.
Huh? Oh, must I really?
Yes, you must.
Oh, all right. You may not have lived much under the sea.
Oh, I haven't.
And perhaps you were never even introduced to a lobster.
I want to taste it. No, never, never.
So you can have no idea what a delightful thing is a lobster quadrille.
No, indeed. What sort of dance is it?
Why, you first form into a line along the seashore.
2 lines, seals, turtles, salmon, and so on. Then, when you've cleared all the jellyfish out of the way,
That generally takes some time.
you advance twice.
Each with a lobster as a partner.
Of course, advance twice, set to partners.
Change the lobsters and retire in the same order.
Then, you throw
The lobsters.
as far out to sea as you can.
Swim after them.
Turn a somersault in the sea.
Change lobsters again.
Then back to land, and that's all there is to the first figure.
It must be a very pretty dance.
Yes. Would you like to see a little of it?
Oh, very much indeed.
Come, let's try the first figure, Griffin. We can do it without the lobsters, you know. Which poem shall we share?
You recite it. I've forgotten the words.
So they began solemnly dancing around and round Alice, every now and then treading on her toes when they passed too close, and waving their forepaws to mark the time, while the Mock Turtle recites the poem.
Will you walk a little faster, said the whiting to the snail. There's a porpoise close behind us, and he's treading on my tail. See how eagerly the lobsters and the turtles all advance. They are waiting on a shingle. Will you come and join the dance? Will you, won't you, will you, won't you, will you join the dance? Will you, won't you, will you, won't you, will you join the dance?
Thank you. It is a very interesting dance to watch, and I do love that curious poem all about the whiting. But if I had been he, I'd said to the porpoise, "Keep back, please. We don't want you with us."
They were obliged to have him with them. No wise fish would go anywhere without a porpoise.
Wouldn't it really?
Of course not. Why, if a fish came to me and told me he was going on a journey, I would say, with what porpoise?
Don't you mean purpose?
I mean what I say.
Shall we try another figure of the lobster quadrille? Or would you like the Mock Turtle to read you another poem?
Oh, read me another poem, please, if the Mock Turtle would be so kind.
No accounting for tastes. Recite Turtle Soup poem, will you, old fellow?
All right. Beautiful soup, so rich and green, waiting in a hot tureen. Who for such dainties?
Come on, it's time to go to the trial.
What trial?
Come on, come on.
And the Griffin grabbed Alice by the hand and hurried her off without waiting for the end of the Mock Turtle's poem. By the time Alice and the Griffin had arrived at the courtroom, a great crowd had assembled there. All sorts of little birds and beasts, as well as the whole pack of cards. The knave stood before the court in chains. The White Rabbit, dressed in the livery of a herald, was near the throne where the King and Queen of Hearts were sitting.
The king is also the judge, by the way, and as he is wearing his crown over his wig, he does not look at all comfortable, and it certainly isn't becoming.
In the very middle of the court, on a table, was a large dish of tarts. It made Alice hungry to look at them.
Oh, I wish they'd get done with the trial and hand around the refreshments.
No chance of that. Them tarts is what the trial's all about.
What are the juries writing on their slates for? They haven't anything important to put down since the trial hasn't begun.
They're writing down their names, for fear they shall forget them before the end of the trial.
Stupid things. Why? They're all writing stupid things on their slates. And look, several of them have even spelt it incorrectly.
Silence in the court!
Harold, read the accusation.
The Queen of Hearts, she made some tarts, all on a summer's day. The Knave of Hearts, he stole those tarts and took them quite away.
Yes, ha ha! Consider your verdict, jury!
No, not yet, Your Majesty. There's a great deal more to come before that.
Oh, all right then. Call the first witness.
First witness, the Hatter, sometimes called Mad.
I beg your pardon, Your Majesty, for bringing my tea and bread and butter with me, but I hadn't quite finished when I was sent for.
Well, you ought to have finished. When did you begin?
14th of March, I think it was.
15th. 16th.
Oh, Write that down.
The jury is writing down all 3 dates on their slates. Now they add them up. And now they're reducing the answer to shillings and pence. Only all the answers are different.
Just at that moment, Alice felt a very curious sensation, which she recognized at once. She was beginning to grow again. She decided, however, to remain in the courtroom as long as there was room for her. However, the dormouse, who was sitting next to her, objected at once. I wish you wouldn't squeeze so. I can hardly breathe.
I can't help it. I'm growing.
You've got no right to grow here.
Don't talk nonsense. You're growing too.
Yes, but I grow at a reasonable rate, not in that ridiculous fashion.
The Hatter is so nervous under the gaze of the Queen that he shakes himself out of both of his shoes, and in his confusion, he bites a large piece out of his teacup instead of his bread and butter.
I'm a poor man, Your Majesty.
Well, you're a very poor speaker, so I may as well have you executed on the spot.
I think I'd rather finish my tea.
Oh, yes, your tea. In that case, you may go.
Oh, yes, Your Majesty, yes, I'm going.
And just take his head off outside.
Oh, yes. His head. Call the next witness.
Alice!
What? Me?
Yes, you.
Well, what do you know about this business, eh?
Nothing.
Nothing whatever?
Nothing. Whatever.
Oh, that's very important.
Unimportant, Your Majesty means, of course.
Unimportant, of course I meant. Important? Unimportant.
Some of the jury writes important, and some unimportant.
Silence!
But it doesn't really matter.
I read from the rule book. Rule 42. All persons more than a mile high will leave the court.
I'm not a mile high.
Oh, yes, you are.
Nearly 2 miles high.
See?
Well, I shan't go at any rate. Besides, you just invented that rule now.
It's the oldest rule in the book.
Then ought it be number 1?
Well, consider your verdict.
No, there's more evidence to come yet, please, Your Majesty.
Oh.
This paper has just been picked up.
What's in it?
I haven't opened it yet, but it seems to be a letter written by the prisoner to somebody.
Well, it must be that, unless it was written to nobody, which isn't at all usual, you know.
Who is it directed to?
It isn't directed at all. In fact, there's nothing written on the outside. It isn't a letter after all. It's a set of verbs.
Are they in the prisoner's handwriting?
No, they're not.
Oh! He must have imitated somebody else's hand.
That proves his guilt. Go off with his head.
Yes!
I don't believe it proves anything of the sort. Why, you don't even know what the verses are about.
Oh, read them.
Where shall I begin, please, Your Majesty?
Begin anywhere and stop when you like.
They told me you had been to her and mentioned me to him. She gave me a good character, but said I could not swim. He sent them word I had not gone. We know it to be true. If she should push the matter on, what would become of you? I gave her 1, they gave him 2, you gave us 3 or more. They all returned from him to you, though they were mine before. If I or she should chance to be involved in this affair, he trusts to you to set them free, exactly as we were. My notion was that you had been, before she had this fit, an obstacle that came between him and ourselves and it. Don't let him know she liked them best, for this must ever be a secret kept from all the rest between yourself and me. I think that's enough, Your Majesty.
Oh, well, that's the most important piece of evidence we've heard yet. Ha ha! So, now let the jury consider.
I don't believe this adds no meaning in it.
Oh? Well, if there's no meaning in it, Alice, that saves a world of trouble, as we needn't try to find any. And yet, I don't know. I seem to see some meaning here. Said I could not swim. You can't swim, can you, knave?
Do I look like it?
He certainly didn't, being made entirely of cardboard.
Well, all right so far. Now continue. We know it to be true, well, that's the jury, of course, if she should push the matter on. Oh, that must be the queen. What would become of you? Yes, what indeed? I gave her one, they gave him two. Why, that must be what they did with the tarts, you know.
But it goes on. They all return from him to you.
Well, there they are.
And so they are. The tarts are on the table.
Nothing can be clearer than that, eh? Ha ha! No. Then again, before she had this fit, you never had fits, did you, my dear consort?
Never. Off with anybody's head.
Well, then the words don't fit you. That's a pun. Thank you. Well, let the jury consider their verdict.
No. Sentence first, verdict afterwards.
Stuff and nonsense. The idea of having a sentence first.
Hold your tongue.
I won't.
Off with her head. But nobody moves. For Alice, who is now her full size and much too large for them to try to do anything about it, stands up, dumping the jury box and its occupants onto the courtroom floor.
Who cares for you? You're nothing but a pack of cards.
At this, the whole pack rose up into the air and came flying down upon her.
Oh, please get off. That hurts very much.
She gave little screams, half of fright, half of anger, and tried to beat them off.
That's very rude. Please stop. Please help. Someone help.
Then she found herself lying on the bank with her head in the lap of her sister, who was gently brushing away some dead leaves that had fluttered down from the trees upon her face. Wake up, Alice dear. Why, what a long sleep you've had.
Oh, I've had such a curious dream, all about a white rabbit, and a March hare, and a mad hatter, and a queen of hearts, and a mock turtle, and a whole pack of cards.
And so ends Sterling Community Theater's dramatization of Alice in Wonderland. This evening's performance was brought to you by Sterling Community Theater, and the characters were brought to life by the following actors. Larry Williams on Foley sound effects as the Mock Turtle and other characters. Lorianne Millard as narrator, the Queen, and other characters. Kathy Powers as narrator, the White Rabbit, and other characters. Matthew Rudd as the Mad Hatter, the Cheshire Cat, and other characters.
Peter Rizak as the announcer, the King of Hearts, and other characters.
Sam Deans as the Caterpillar, March Hare, Griffin, and other characters. And Delaney Rizak as Alice. With John Leslie on piano. And Mark Hill as our engineer.